What would push three men to commit one of the most brutal crimes in recent history? How does a rap battle, a contest of words and skill, spiral into an act of unimaginable violence? And how does a survivor endure, defy all odds, and live to tell the tale? On New Year's Day 2014, a quiet, empty lot in Columbus, Georgia, became the setting for a crime so heinous it left seasoned investigators questioning humanity itself. A young woman's talent and confidence during a freestyle rap battle struck a nerve with three men. But instead of accepting defeat, they sought revenge so cruel, so calculated, it would shock the nation. Forced at gunpoint to drive to an isolated location, this woman, outnumbered and overpowered, faced relentless violence. Assaulted, shot 10 times, and left for dead, her attackers believed they had silenced her forever. But they were wrong. This is not just the story of a crime. It's a confrontation with uncomfortable truths. How do we explain the entitlement that leads to such acts? Why does society struggle to protect women from these horrors? And most importantly, how do we ensure voices like hers are heard and justice is served? As we unravel this story, we will examine the egos and entitlement that fueled the attack, the courage of a survivor who refused to be erased, and the justice that demanded accountability. This isn't an easy story to hear, but it's one we all need to understand. Stay with us. It's time to face the questions we can no longer ignore. Welcome to Unseen True Crime Stories HQ. I thank you, my viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. To understand the depths of this story, we must first step back and meet the people at its center. The victim, Brielle Saunders, and the men who turned her life into a nightmare, Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Guerin. Brielle Saunders was a young, vibrant woman with dreams as big as her talent. Raised in Columbus, Georgia, she grew up surrounded by music. Her father, a gospel musician, introduced her to the power of lyrics, rhythm, and storytelling. By her teenage years, Brielle was a local star in freestyle rap battles. Her quick wit and lyrical flow earned her respect in a predominantly male space. She wasn't just talented, she was fearless. Brielle's confidence in her craft made her a standout wherever she went, often drawing crowds eager to hear her turn words into poetry. But her ambition wasn't only about fame. She saw rap as a way to connect, to inspire, and to prove that a woman's voice in hip-hop could carry as much weight as any man's. On the night in question, it was this confidence that led her to Garden Drive, a known gathering spot for local rappers. She wasn't there to make trouble. She was there to compete, to showcase her skill, and to enjoy the thrill of the mic. What she didn't know was that her strength and success would spark envy and rage in the wrong people. But what would become clear in the aftermath is this: Brielle's resilience, forged through years of overcoming challenges, would be the very thing that kept her alive. Now, let's turn to the men who changed the trajectory of Brielle's life forever: Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Guerin. Each of them carried a history that, when pieced together, revealed a disturbing pattern of anger, violence, and disregard for others. Robert Johnson was the ringleader. At 25, he was already well acquainted with the legal system. His juvenile record painted a troubling picture, including a conviction for forcing an 8-year-old girl to perform unspeakable acts when he was just 13. He claimed the victim had followed him willingly, a chilling glimpse into his warped sense of entitlement. As an adult, Johnson's temper and need for control dominated his interactions. Friends described him as someone who thrived on intimidation, using his physical presence and sharp tongue to keep others in line. Katori Glover, 26, was quieter but no less dangerous. Those who knew him described a man who seemed calm on the surface but could erupt without warning. His criminal record included petty theft and assault, but what stood out most was his impulsiveness. Glover was the kind of person who acted first and thought later, a dangerous quality when combined with Johnson's manipulative tendencies. Joey Guerin was the youngest of the trio at 22, often overlooked and underestimated. He was the follower, the one who sought validation by aligning himself with stronger personalities. But his insecurities didn't make him any less complicit. In fact, Guerin's unpredictability often escalated situations. His need to prove himself led to acts of recklessness that left destruction in their wake. Together, these three men formed a volatile group. Johnson was the leader, the one who set the tone. Glover acted as the enforcer, carrying out orders without hesitation. Garin, desperate for acceptance, filled in the gaps, adding fuel to an already dangerous mix. What brought them together that night on Garden Drive was their shared need for dominance and recognition. But what set them apart was their inability to handle rejection. Brielle's victory in the rap battle wasn't just a loss to them, it was a challenge to their egos. And in their world, where control was everything, that challenge demanded retaliation. It began as a night full of energy and excitement, the kind that often surrounded underground rap scenes. The party house on Garden Drive was alive with music, laughter, and the quick-fire cadence of freestyle rap battles. Brielle Saunders was in her element, confident, skilled, and ready to take on anyone who stepped up to the mic. The house buzzed with anticipation as Brielle, well known for her sharp wit and lyrical talent, went head-to-head with some of the best freestyle rappers in the room. The crowd gathered close, cheering with every clever line and sharp retort. Among those watching were Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Garin. For a while, the rap battle seemed like nothing more than friendly competition. Brielle's energy and skill drew everyone in, including the three men. They watched her with growing fascination, her ability to dominate the battle sparking a mix of admiration and frustration. Eventually, the battle moved from the crowded house to the quieter space of Brielle's car, where she, Johnson, Glover, and Garin continued to freestyle. It seemed, at least for a moment, like a harmless extension of the night's fun. Inside the car, the mood remained light at first. Laughter and rhymes filled the air as the group took turns showcasing their lyrical prowess. Brielle held her ground effortlessly, her verses flowing with the same confidence that had captivated the crowd earlier. But as the night wore on, the dynamic began to shift. Johnson and Glover exchanged glances, their demeanor changing almost imperceptibly. The atmosphere grew tense, though Brielle, engrossed in the music and the moment, didn't immediately notice. Then, without warning, Glover pulled out a gun. The air turned icy as Johnson followed suit, his weapon aimed directly at Brielle. The laughter and camaraderie evaporated in an instant. The men ordered Brielle to start driving, their voices sharp and commanding. Her heart pounded as she tried to process what was happening. She complied, gripping the steering wheel tightly as she navigated the streets, unsure of where they were taking her or why. The tension in the car was suffocating, every second stretching into what felt like hours. As they drove, Glover grew impatient and demanded she pull over. He took control of the wheel, forcing Brielle into the passenger seat. The men exchanged crude remarks, their words laced with malice. Garin, sitting in the back, remained mostly silent, but his uneasy fidgeting suggested he knew exactly where this was heading. The car came to a stop at an abandoned lot on Far Road, a place chosen for its isolation. There were no lights, no sounds, and no one around to witness the horrors about to unfold. The cold air bit at Brielle's skin as she sat frozen in the passenger seat, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. The eerie silence of the night was broken only by the low murmurs of the men and the sound of her own racing heartbeat. The lot itself was desolate, overgrown with weeds and littered with debris. Shadows stretched across the barren ground, cast by the faint glow of the moon above. Brielle could feel the chill creeping through her, but it wasn't just the cold, it was fear. She pleaded with the men, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her. She begged them to let her go, reasoning with them, trying to appeal to any sliver of humanity they might have. But her pleas were met with cruel laughter, their mocking tones cutting through the darkness. They didn't see her as a person anymore. To them, she was an object, a target for their anger and frustration. The laughter only grew louder as Johnson and Glover brandished their weapons, making it clear there would be no escape. What followed was an assault so horrifying that the details would later leave a courtroom in stunned silence. Brielle was forced to strip at gunpoint, her dignity stolen piece by piece. The men degraded her, taking turns assaulting her both physically and sexually. They used their guns as instruments of humiliation, the cold metal pressing against her skin as they took turns inflicting unimaginable pain. They had a good old time. They were passing me around like a piece of cake. Brielle would later testify in court, her voice trembling with the weight of those words. She endured repeated acts of brutality, each one designed to break her spirit. But even in the midst of such cruelty, Brielle's strength remained. She clung to the hope that somehow, some way, she would survive this nightmare. The men's laughter echoed across the empty lot as they took turns violating her. For them, it was a game. For Brielle, it was a fight for her life. When the assault finally ended, the men weren't finished. They attempted to force Brielle into the trunk of her car, their plans unknown but their intent unmistakable. It was then that Brielle saw her chance. With every ounce of strength she had left, she broke free and ran. She didn't think. She just ran. Her bare feet pounded against the cold ground as gunshots rang out behind her. Johnson and Glover opened fire, their bullets finding their target again and again. Brielle was hit 10 times, her body collapsing to the ground under the weight of her injuries. But even then, she wasn't done fighting. She lay still, her breathing shallow, pretending to be dead as the men approached, believing their work was finished. The men retrieved a gas can from the trunk of the car. They doused Brielle in gasoline, the acrid smell filling the air, and set her on fire. Flames engulfed her body as the men fled, convinced they had erased all evidence of their crime. But Brielle wasn't done. Against all odds, she found the strength to move. Through the pain of her burns and bullet wounds, she crawled inch by inch towards safety. Her body was broken, but her will to live remained unshaken. Passers-by eventually found her, drawn by the faint sound of her cries. They called for help, and Brielle was rushed to the hospital, her life hanging by a thread. Doctors marveled at her survival, calling it nothing short of a miracle. Covered in burns and riddled with bullet wounds, Brielle had endured more than most could imagine. And yet, she was alive. Her story was far from over. What had happened in that lot was only the beginning of a journey toward justice. Stay with us as we explore how Brielle's courage would shine in the days to come and how her testimony would bring 3 men to account for their crimes. As Brielle Saunders fought for her life in the hospital, the wheels of justice began to turn. The case landed on the desk of Lieutenant Lance Dion, a seasoned investigator with years of experience in handling violent crimes. Yet, even for Dion, this case stood out. The brutality described by changes to local policies, including increased protections for vulnerable individuals and harsher penalties for violent offenders. Her bravery inspired countless others to speak out, ensuring that her story was not just about pain, but also about empowerment. This case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of justice and the resilience of the human spirit, said one community leader. Brielle's courage showed that even in the face of unimaginable pain, survival and triumph are possible. But it also leaves us with a question: what can we do as a society to ensure that no one else endures such suffering? The answer lies in awareness, accountability, and a commitment to standing with survivors. As we look back on this story, we are reminded of the sheer bravery of Brielle Saunders, the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement, and the accountability delivered in the courtroom. This was a case that exposed the depths of human cruelty, but also revealed the strength of one woman's will to survive. We invite you to reflect on this story. What lessons can we take from it? How can we, as a society, do more to protect those at risk and hold perpetrators accountable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more content that explores the triumph of justice and the strength of survivors. Together, we can ensure these stories are heard and these lessons are never forgotten.